Many working women find it difficult to make time for their families or themselves, but it doesn't have to be that way. A new book called Creating Your Life Collage claims you can have a fulfilling career and have time for the things you enjoy most. McDonald and Beth Sirull authored the book. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
What is a life collage?
A life collage, we started with the word balance, and we're very frustrated by that word because it suggested this two-dimensional precise measurement, kind of like an old-fashioned scale with work on one side and the rest of your life piled on the other side. So if you think about adding even one thing, like a client moves a deadline up or a pipe bursts in your house, you're now out of balance. The collage allows for the dynamic, multi-dimensional nature to our lives. When you create a life collage, you look at the elements you want in your life, and then you consciously arrange them to represent the life you want.
But that's much easier said than done.
Right, and the first thing you need to do is really recognize that you need to make a change, and that's really the hardest thing for a lot of people. And many of the women that we spoke to, and there were nearly 1,000 women that contributed to the book, and as soon as they made that conscious decision that it was time to make a change, they started to feel better.
You have a test for our audience to see if you need to make a change in your life. What's the #1 question you ask yourself?
Well, there are 5 questions. So the first one is, are you constantly exhausted or frequently sick?
Now, is this at your job or is this at home? Or could be either one?
In general. I mean, if you are constantly exhausted or frequently sick, something's probably wrong.
Right.
#2.
Do you find yourself saying, oh, it will get better next week or next month or after the next deadline? And often it doesn't. So again, you know, if you say yes to that, that's a sign. #3, do you dread going to work? Do you find that the Monday morning blues are seeping into Sunday afternoon? And #4, are you working harder and longer and enjoying it less and less? And finally, do you have a general sense, like a pervasive sense, that you're just stuck? And if you answer yes to one or more of those questions, we would say that it's time to start thinking about your life collage.
But if you answer yes to #1, are you constantly feeling exhausted or are you frequently sick? If you're a mom at home with little kids, you can't just up and go. I mean, there aren't a lot of options for you. If you're feeling tired all the time, what do you do?
Well, the first step that we usually encourage people to take is look at their definition of success and balance, or the collage. Start out by defining, well, what is it that you would like to change in your life? For some people, it's as simple as, I just want to work out 3 days a week during lunch. That's not a major change, but if you are a mom and you're considering, you know, wanting to be around them more, perhaps going part-time, then you need to look at making a bigger change. Then you need to look at the other side of the equation, which is your definition of success. If you're like most Americans, you define success by the title you hold and how much you earn. But if it's important to you to be a good parent and be involved in your community, your definition of success needs to change to include those.
But there are always trade-offs when we consider these things.
Always trade-offs. But, you know, trade-offs are part of life. You can't avoid them. So you are making trade-offs today. It's just that you're likely making them subconsciously. You know, look, we talked to women who said, I really want to be active in my community. When you ask them about their life, it turns out they haven't made it, say, to a meeting for an organization they're part of in 6 months. They're making trade-offs. So we have an exercise in the book that helps you uncover the trade-offs that you're making subconsciously and compare them to the trade-offs that maybe would better suit your needs. And the key is to be making conscious trade-offs. That's why we call it a conscious life collage, because you're making very conscious choices.
And you had an epiphany in your own life, and you made a conscious decision.
I did.
Briefly tell us about it.
I was commuting to work. I had about an hour commute in traffic, and I used to daydream because I knew the route so well. And I woke up with a start in the parking lot of my office and realized that I had been daydreaming that I had pneumonia. I was in the hospital, and I had a huge smile on my face because I did not have to go to work. And I walked
Even that hospital food sounds good.
And I quit that day. And that started my journey. And it was because we were looking for solutions, and people kept talking about the problem that we started going looking for solutions to write this book.
And Kathy, what happened to you?
Well, I actually had 2 epiphanies. The first one, after coming home from a 14-hour day, was having a conversation with my husband saying, oh, it'll get better after December 8th. And he just finally said, do you have any ideas how many times you've said that to me? And I realized he was right. I was one of those who kept thinking it would get better next week, next month, or after the next deadline. So I started looking around and figuring out what my next step was going to be.
Is it women that deal with this issue more than men, do you think?
I think women are ahead of the
men.
curve.
Yeah.
But more and
Why
more,
are they ahead?
Well, just because they've been taking the primary role for children in their home, they have been pushing the envelope further sooner. But time and time again in corporations, we're seeing men are increasingly saying, I want a life too.
The biggest change in the 3 years we've been working on this project is the number of men who are saying, I want it too.
Right.
You can have it.
And you can have it.
All right. The book is Creating Your Life Collage. Kathy McDonald, Beth Sirull. Nice to meet you, ladies.
Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
so much.
Good advice in here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. You're watching The Early Show on CBS.
Every year, our family comes from far and wide to spend a week together. This year,